Welcome to the hottest grappling show in Arizona. The Valley is home to an amazing grappling community. Join us as we roll through the top jiu-jitsu schools in the state. Our goal? To highlight incredible instructors, their academies, and their amazing journeys through life and jiu-jitsu. It's not the destination, it's the journey that counts. Welcome to Rollin Through the Valley.
The mask, go all the way. Yeah, put that elbow right there. Right? Everything's up. Give me a little bit. Cheer through. Up.
Sills here, rolling through the valley. Here we are at Exodus Jiu-Jitsu, and with me is Professor Jason Hensley. Jason, super excited to have you on the show.
Yes, honor's all
I've
mine.
seen you around. I've been to your school. Like, finally, I get to sit down with you and get to know you a little bit. So,
Yeah, great to have you.
thank you. So, let's get to know you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, Jason Hensley. So, father of 3 beautiful daughters, married going on 19 years. My whole family trains jiu-jitsu. Right? This is the lifestyle, as they say. Been for a long time. I've been involved in various businesses and various things over the years, but jiu-jitsu has been the consistent in my life. So,
How did you get into jiu-jitsu?
yeah, so my age, tell my age, right? So in 1993, when the UFC first came on, I had an uncle that was training with the Machados in California at the time, and I lived off the coast of California at the time. And he invited me over to see this pay-per-view event where these dudes were going to be fighting. And there was this dude in a gi beating up these guys that looked like superheroes. And I was sold. I want to do that.
You're like, that's it.
That's it, like that. I was 14 at the time, right? So 1993, I was 14. And, a little kid just blown away, this rather unassuming dude being able to do what he did so quickly to these big superhero looking guys with all the muscles.
Yeah.
And so I kind of spent the next 4 or 5 years training with my uncle out of his garage. He would take me with him to the Machado school at the time. My family didn't really value extracurricular activities, so it wasn't a priority for my parents to take me. But my uncle kind of took me under his wing as much as he could. And jiu-jitsu was a different thing back then. There wasn't tournaments in 1993. Jiu-jitsu was, I guess, what we call MMA now. Right? It was kind of a different context, but I was in love with it.
Yeah.
And so from that point on, it was something I always tried to return to. So I do that till about 19 or 20, I guess. Start working a regular job, start, living an adult life. At 22 in 2001, I joined the military and was stationed in Europe. There was no jiu-jitsu in Europe at the time. I used to teach people what the guard was so I could practice passing the guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. And then eventually the Army started developing a combatives curriculum. So we got a chance to wear our Army uniforms and roll like they were a gi.
Nice.
They teach real fundamental stuff, and they have these little in-house tournament style stuff, but nobody knew a cross choke, nobody knew a loop choke, but you've got these nice collars in those uniforms.
Yeah.
So it was just an area where I got to excel and just came very natural. And when I got out of the service, moved back to Los Angeles, moved out here shortly thereafter to go to school, and pretty much just every day since.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah,
That's
for
awesome
sure.
to hear.
For sure.
So was jiu-jitsu a natural thing for you, starting, or because I know you said, were you in any other extracurricular activities?
Yeah, so I'm part Asian, believe it or not. So
I can't see it.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So I have I had, she's passed now, a little old Korean woman for a grandma. And being the oldest grandson in the Korean tradition is a big deal. You follow these certain path, you're expected to carry out a certain honor for the family. So from about 4 to 12, grandma had me in Taekwondo because that's what a little Korean boy did at the time. She lived in a little pocket, a Korean pocket within the Los Angeles area. And so, I was literally the only non-Asian kid in class, sticking out quite a bit. And so, I grew up around Taekwondo. I probably couldn't throw a kick to save my life nowadays. But it was just kind of part of the culture in which I was raised.
Cool.
Once I saw jiu-jitsu, there was no turning back. I tell my students, especially my adult students that start like in their 40s, there's an uncomfortability when someone first takes you down and you've never been taken down. There's an uncomfortability when someone's trying to choke you for the first time, right? Jiu-jitsu is an interesting thing, right? You know, I say to the coaches here, like, parents are trusting you with their kids to be respectful and honorable with them.
Yeah.
Adult males are trusting you to not destroy their ego and not physically hurt them, and women are trusting you between their legs. So there's a sacred thing that goes into this, right?
Right.
And so when I took up jiu-jitsu at 14 with my uncle, I felt safe. So the guys would come, and like I said, it was more like MMA. So they'd put you in the guard, and all of a sudden they'd slap you around. And you're like, oh, that's just what we do. But it wasn't bad. I never felt in danger. So for me, I think jiu-jitsu came fairly naturally because like many children, there's never that fear of injury. There's never that fear of that mistrust. It just wasn't there at first for me. And you'll see that with kids as well when you teach, right?
Nice.
The kids that take to this naturally, the kids that just want to play. And that's what it was for me.
Awesome. So tell us how you got into teaching and how that all came about for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess quite natural. Like, again, another situation in my life where I was doing jiu-jitsu with a gentleman, and he didn't have a kids program. He wanted to start a kids program. He asked me if I'd help out. I've kind of always found myself in a situation where people are like, hey, would you step up into this role? It just seems to be something of who I am. And so I think that was white or blue belt. And I literally started teaching 2 kids and then 3 kids and just kind of trying to figure out what it was. And my kids were real little at the time, so it was very natural for want to play with the kids and learn how to interact with them on that. When I was a purple belt, I moved to Germany. So probably 2010 or 11, my family had an opportunity and we moved to Germany. And so I couldn't find any jiu-jitsu at that time, like at all. And the internet wasn't. I'm
not surprised,
2011, 10, 12. MMA was still illegal in Germany at that time. So it was just a different thing.
Illegal?
Yeah. Yeah, to promotions, it was actually still illegal to put it out. It's since changed.
Yeah.
So I lived in the southern corner of Germany, about 45 minutes from Switzerland. So I found a CrossFit, like searching the internet. I went to this CrossFit, and in the little corner, and I walked in, they had this little matted out room, red mats like this, and in their initial sales pitch, I'm like, yeah, but what do you guys do with those mats down there?
Yeah.
And so we just started talking. They're like, hey, you want to teach jiu-jitsu here? Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the big push. So I started teaching jiu-jitsu in Basel, Switzerland, out of a CrossFit, a little bit there. I found a black belt in Germany that was an hour and a half north from where I live. So I drive an hour and a half north, 2-3 times a week to go train with him. Drive 45 minutes south 2-3 days a week to train and kind of teach jiu-jitsu.
Man, so you've been kind of like all over the place too.
I've done a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah, I've done
That's
a little
cool.
bit.
How long have you been in this space?
In this space here,
Yeah.
we took this space on in May of 23. We had another school originally that we started in July of 22.
Cool.
And so Exodus has been around about 2 years. This space just over a year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on competition?
I love competition. I think competition gives purpose to training. I think competition. So the value of a tournament, a value of competing, is not based off of your performance. That's what I tell the kids and adults and parents all the time. I put out on my social media not too long ago, like, I'd rather take 100% losses with all my kids, with all my parents in a tournament, than build into people's egos and celebrity and me over you, right? I think the value in competing is a real chance to identify who you are as a human and to deal with either a victory or a loss with grace. Your ability to say, man, I am the man or the woman today at the expense of somebody else, versus saying I'm the man or the woman because somebody else was willing to sacrifice that, and then be able to step into that role myself or yourself in that scenario, is just huge in creating good citizens. Right? The ability, jiu-jitsu becomes a place, and competing and on the mats becomes a place that it's safe to fail. It's okay for me to fail and just go to work the next day and nothing changes, or just go to school the next day.
Right.
And the value of that, the value of learning how to lose and learning how to win, it's irreplaceable. It's priceless.
I love that. That's super cool. And so you're an active competitor. I just literally saw you compete and you crushed it. I was like, yes, Jason.
Thank you very much.
I was super impressed. I'm like, oh my God, that's him.
I love competing. I had a 4-year hiatus, starting with 3 knee surgeries.
Oh.
And just life. As we talked a little bit earlier, I took on a graduate degree, so I was focusing on a master's degree. So starting a jiu-jitsu school, running this program, working on a master's degree. Competition, unfortunately, just wasn't in the scene. I did finish that earlier this year, so I went right back to competing. So I got to compete twice in the last few months, which felt really good. Felt really good. I love the preparation. I love, hey, I need to be super disciplined about my meal, about my sleep, about my training, about the way I look at the world. I love getting into that mindset. It makes you a better person, a better human. It forces discipline, right? It forces discipline in so many areas of your life.
And so do you have any competitions that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so my daughter, my 16-year-old daughter recently told me, Daddy, I want to take a run at what it means to be a world champion. Which, you know, for a guy like me, that's a dream come true to have your kids say that. So, okay, so what does that look like? What do we schedule your life? How do we try to accommodate that? So there's a fair amount of traveling involved for a kid that decides she wants to do that. So I will try to compete as much as she does. So, you know, coming up, we've got December 7th, right? With AZBJJL.
So you're competing?
I don't know yet. It depends.
No, you gotta sign up.
I would love to, but if I have 30 students, it's quite difficult. It's just the reality of this end.
I get it.
I think the best way I can compete and support my school and the organization is by being there as the coach for them. Not that it's impossible to coach and compete at the same time. It's just, it's different. You know, coaching, you're in every match. Competing, you're in your match. And so I find it a little more physically exhausting, but almost, and definitely more anxiety watching my students compete, but more rewarding.
What's your mindset going into a competition? Like, how do you mentally prepare?
So confidence comes from preparation, right? I say that all the time. So again, I go in, I don't get nervous. I think one of my biggest problems when I first started competing was I didn't take it seriously enough, is what I was told. It's not, and it wasn't that I didn't take it seriously enough. It's just, to me, it's not, there used to be a comment, this is war. You can shake hands now, but when we shake hands and going, you're my enemy. And I just don't look at it that way. They're not my enemy. As I said, I was in the service, I fought in combat. You know, when we compete, there's a ref, there's a rule set. So there's a layer of built-in safety. Right? There's a protocol of like, I'm gonna be okay. And I understand people get performance anxiety, and I understand people get audio exclusion, they can't hear, and it's an intense situation. And I'm respectful of that. But for me, my mindset is like, this is why I've been training. I've spent years and years on the mat, learning how to do arm bars, learning how to do whatever, so that I can now go out and play the game. When you go to practice, that's not the event. Right? If I was on a basketball team, we'd do basketball practice to go play basketball games. So that tournament is just another part of the training, but it's the point of the training. Right? And there's always another tournament, and that's the beauty in it. So I find a lot of confidence in my preparation, my mindset. I like to take ice bath a lot when I'm in training. I like to just sit there and visualize, okay, I will dominate the space, no distance, no opportunities or whatever. So I'm going to grip here, I'm going to go, and I just visualize what I'm doing. And, you know, if that preparation goes right, it's just there. Like, the day of competition is a chance for you to find true equality in the world. Right? I tell my students that no matter what that other person's done, you know, that people talk, oh, he's underranked, they sandbag their students, or they're heavier than I am, or they're just in better shape. None of that really matters. That's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. I'm down 27 points. Doesn't matter, just submit them. It's not easier said than done, but you get a chance to make all the world right with your effort and your opportunity. So if you've mentally prepared, if you've physically prepared, if you have a mindset of like, I have an opportunity to make the entire world right in that moment, in that day, just feel like you can't lose even if you lose.
I don't know, Jason, you're kind of built differently. Like, that's like mentally strong. Like, you know, a lot of people don't feel like that. A lot of people are just extremely nervous to just get on those mats. And they just collapse too. Like, once they're there, like, oh my God. So that's awesome. You should start teaching mindset. Like,
if I could, you know, there's a few tournaments in my life where I just thought I was in the zone. I literally don't, I usually submit everybody in the bracket. I don't feel like anybody could beat me in the world that day. And it's just that zone. If I could teach that zone, I would be Tony Robbins or whatever.
Well, what do you teach your students? Like, how do you?
So preparation comes, or confidence comes from preparation, and I believe combat sports is more mental than physical. We are all at the same weight class. We're all in the same belt levels. We're all in the same age brackets. So it's not And everybody trains hard. Everybody wants to be the best. Nobody goes in and go, I'm going to lose this tournament, right? So a lot of it is your mindset. Where do we need, and I do a lot of individual conversations and group conversations with students, where do we need to be mentally so that you feel prepared? Oh, I don't think I can do it. Well, there you go. I'm going to be honest. If you're going to this tournament to see how it goes, don't sign up. If you're going, I've never signed up for a tournament I didn't think I could win. Doesn't mean I won them all, but I truly believe on that given day, I've got a shot. Yeah. And I've got a shot at anybody. Yeah. And so I believe that because I spent hours on the mat. Right. If you're going to sign up for a tournament, you can't train once a week. You can't train twice a week. Yeah. There was a day years ago in jiu-jitsu where the average guy could win at
not
the belt
anymore,
levels.
right?
Even at
it's
masters.
Crazy.
But it's not that anymore. No, nobody goes in there not training 5-6 days a week, not doing strength and conditioning, not watching their diet.
It's a different caliber for
It's a different, and it's beautiful. And so what competition gives is a relationship between humans in which that God had designed us to literally sharpen iron against iron, to butt our heads to bring out the best in each other. So competition is a unique gift within our creation that helps us to elevate ourselves and others through sacrifice and through hard work. And there's just nothing else like that. Yeah. And since most of us have chosen jiu-jitsu as this path to refine our character traits, to refine our personality, competition helps us to cut the fat, if you will, or burn off the extras, because you have to just, because the level elevated so much, you have to just focus solely on that. Yeah. I hear a lot of parents go, well, how come what does this kid do different? Well, respectfully, but he's not in 5 different activities. He's just here 6 days a week. Right. He's not doing basketball and football and jiu-jitsu and competing. He's focused just on this task ahead. And I think in our modern world where we have the ability to consume as much as possible, that singular determination is a great blessing in our personality traits and characters.
Do you teach your students about the rule set going into competition? How do you do that?
Yeah, so depending on the number of competitors, I'll do a week to a month. I'm teaching the art of competing. And so we'll set up scenarios. So if it's the kids, first thing we do is talk about jiu-jitsu math. What's jiu-jitsu math? 2 for a takedown, 3 to pass the guard, right? So we talk about math. And then I go, okay, so I'll set up a scenario. Hey, open guard, whatever. I need you to score 9 points. Well, how do I score 9 points? Exactly. How do you score 9 points? Yeah. So then let's do the math. And person on the bottom, you're going to stop them from scoring that because you want to score your 9 points. Yeah. And so we'll break down stuff like that. We'll do jiu-jitsu math games in that nature. Hey, I need whatever. How do we get there? They're raising their hands, they're going. For adults, we do it very similar, but we do it on a smaller time clock.
Okay.
And then just a lot of like understanding, hey, if they go to turtle in this position, they're trying to negate your 3 points. You're going to get an advantage if you can control this, but an advantage is worthless as soon as points are scored. So an advantage is great if you can keep it tied, but who wants to keep the match tied? Yeah. Right? We want to advance positions. And I try to tell my students that the point system is based off dominant positions of originally a real fight, right? The most dominant position I can be in is where you can't punch or kick me and I can just choke you. So we get 4 points for being on the back. Same in mount. You can't really punch or kick me, but I get the most dominant points for that. Yeah. Right? And so if you notice, the point system honestly favors the person on top. Right. So I teach there's only 2 positions in jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of chapters and a lot of variations, but there's only top and bottom. Right? So, okay, I'm not comfortable with takedowns. I want to pull guard. Great. Don't pull guard, pull a plan. So we just try to design training around, if we're competing, this is the goal of competing, to always be in a dominant position and find submissions along the way.
I love how you like really dissected this. Well, you have to, right? If you're going to compete, you have to know the rule set. You have to have a strategy. That's super cool. What is one of the biggest lessons competitions and competing has taught you?
So for me personally, I think the biggest lessons in competition have actually become watching students and others train, others compete. Like I said, for me, it's my happy place. Win or lose, I'm super stoked to be out there. I hate losing. Yeah. But, you know, I love that atmosphere. But having to watch my students lose, whether they're adults or kids, and that moment of where you're breaking down and tears are developing and you feel like you let people down, and being able to go, you haven't let me down. I'm super proud of what you've done. Look at your parents cheering. You haven't let anybody down. Some of those lessons that being able to lead somebody. I mean, even at this last tournament at Southwest Classic, I had a child who, she lost her first match. She had a second match right after that. I can't do it. Professor, I'm not getting on the mat. I can't, no. And she's tearing and just, okay, like, look, sometimes life kicks us in the butt.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean life ends, right? I don't care if you win or lose that next match. What I care about is you overcome that fear right now.
Yeah.
So just getting to stand with this young lady and just pray with her and talk to her about it and watch her posture go from this to this.
Love
now
it.
she went out, she gave her effort. She lost that next match. Great.
Yeah.
But she won that day. And I was holding back tears
Oh my
as
God.
she's out there
Yeah.
because that's a young lady just a second ago saying, I get too nervous. I can't. There's no way. And there's panic and there's fear and there's hyperventilating. To now she's overcome those fears and she's gotten out there and yeah, she lost and she lost bad. But man, she won. So I come off, I tell her, look, the samurai doesn't always win, but the samurai shows up to fight. And today you earned your samurai spirit.
Love that.
Those lessons.
Yeah.
And even to, I don't know where that necessarily comes from when I'm giving these words of wisdom or advice to these kids, but it just feels like jiu-jitsu has taught me that.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, jiu-jitsu teaches you, I mean, you lose all the time in jiu-jitsu.
all the time. For
If you
years.
get your black belt, you lost several millions of times to get that.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
so you've competed, you've been in the army, so you've experienced loss.
Sure.
And so I think that's why you're really able to coach these students. So that's awesome. That's super cool.
The biggest lessons I'm most grateful is those lessons.
Yeah.
And then the way we've seen it interact with other families, even outside of competition, just in here.
Yeah.
I've seen a number of situations that I could spend an hour talking about of the healing of families through jiu-jitsu and just
For sure.
the rebonding of parents and kids and just amazing things.
Yeah, and as the instructor, I'm sure you see that all the time,
time.
like firsthand. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would you say to yourself?
Yeah, that's hard. I never thought I wouldn't be a black belt. I never was like, hey, I don't know if I've got it. No, like I knew when I was 14 that one day I'd be a black belt. I knew that I would be doing jiu-jitsu at 14, like forever, even though I had years in which I didn't. So if I think like coming up through the lower belts, I think a piece of advice I would give myself and maybe now others would be the black belt is not the end of this. That's not the goal.
Yeah.
Like the black belt was everything. Like I have to get it. And then you get to it. People talk about blue belt blues, but like black belt blues is a real thing. Like, okay, I've reached the goal. Now what?
Right.
And so if I could tell myself early on, enjoy that. Not that I didn't enjoy the process. I loved the process. But being a purple belt, being promoted was a big deal. Meant nothing to me. Right? The black belt's the goal. I'm not even halfway there. Like that was my mindset. And you know, once I got the black belt and 2 weeks later you're like, oh, it's just another belt on my waist.
Right.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought this would make like nothing's changed.
Right. Yeah.
And thank God I had my wife and my daughter's training, because before opening up the school I couldn't find a purpose to train. So I would show up for them.
Yeah.
Right? So a piece of advice I'd give to brown belt Jason or blue belt Jason would be like, the black belt's not the end of this.
That's good to know for myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we're always chasing that next belt or that next stripe. And it's like, once you get to black,
there is no next.
I mean, you get your stripes and then you get your coral or whatever, but it's like, you know, it's different, right?
5 years old. If I get a coral belt, I'll be close to 80. It's not something I can focus on at this point. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, this was really nice getting to know you.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, so Instagram, Facebook. I mean, we're here in North Phoenix 6 days a week, 7 days a week, really.
Yeah.
So always be found. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jason. And cut.
Thank you.